Good morning. I'm Alan Sproat, and I'm a worship associate here at Horizon. We're excited to welcome you to our worship service this morning. We're so glad to have you with us today, whether you're joining us in person or virtually, whether you're here for the first time or whether you've been here for longer than you can remember. Here at Horizon, we welcome people of all faiths and of no faith in particular. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome among us. Okay, I don't have any hats today. I do have a gavel. Don't forget, the auction bidding ends tonight at 6 o'clock. That's 7 hours, 28 minutes, and 48 seconds from now. Right now, ooh, it just went up. We are at $4,570. We are $430 short of our goal. There are lots of events that still have space open on them, and believe me, for these events, the more the merrier. So get out there and make your bids because it is gone.
We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope is hallowed by our presence together. In that spirit, come, let us worship.
Today's Chalice Lighting is We Are a People of Expectation by Reverend Suzelle Lynch. We are a people of expectation, trusting that the world will deliver what we want, yet opening our hearts to a universe of beauty and struggle beyond all predictions. We are a people of expectation, anticipating what we feel we deserve, but faithful to the paths unfolding even when it leads to wilderness. As a people of expectation, we light this chalice with hope and joy. May its warmth fire our hearts and inspire our spirits. Please join me in our affirmation. Stand as you are able. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth, thus do we covenant together. Now please join us in singing opening hymn number 395, Sing and Rejoice.
This is a round. I'm going to sing it all the way through once so you hear the tune, and then we'll all do it together. And then Jamie is going to lead part 1, I'll lead part 2, and the choir will be part 3. We'll do it 3 times as a round. So just me, then everybody, and then a round. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice, let all things living now sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice.
Horizon partners with MetroCrest Services to serve the greater community. If you have, first of all, we do have a coat and toy drive going on right now, and I was informed that MetroCrest is in dire need of toys for 8 to 10-year-olds. And you can drop them off anytime at the church if you call ahead and make arrangements for someone to be here, because we have volunteers lined up to take the toys and the coats to MetroCrest that same day. And also, we always are collecting shelf-stable food items. And so if you have brought items today, I invite you to pass them to the aisles, and I'm going to invite our young folks to come up front today for a story. Great, glad to see everybody, and yay, donations. So today I'm going to tell a story on our felt board. And this story, we have all the time we need, we take it slow, and afterwards, I'm going to ask you some wondering questions. I'm going to ask you some questions about what you felt in the story. Next Sunday night, December 18th at sundown, there's a special time for many families all over the world. They're going to celebrate freedom, miracles, and love. This wonderful celebration is called Hanukkah. In a faraway land, many thousands of years ago, the people lived in peace and worshiped in many different ways and in many different places. Among these people were the Jews. They worshiped their God in a building called a temple. Let's go ahead and make that temple right now. I'm going to make the people inside their temple worshiping. There we go. There's their stone temple, all ready for worshiping. The king of the land was named Antiochus, and he wanted everyone to do what he wanted. There he is, Antiochus. He went to the temple of the Jewish people and said, "You cannot believe what you want to believe. You must believe only what I believe and worship as I do." And he made them leave their temple. And the temple was damaged. But the Jewish people did not like that. They wanted to keep their own beliefs and worship their own God in their own temple. So their army, the Maccabees, fought for their freedom, and they won. And King Antiochus left. They went to their temple, they fixed it up, and then they lit a lamp. There we go. Almost as good as new, right? And they lit a lamp, but there was only enough oil to last for a day. But a miracle happened. That light lasted for 8 nights. Now, thousands of years later, Jewish people still celebrate this miracle of light that lasted 8 days, and their freedom to believe as they wish and worship as they choose. They bring out something called a menorah, a beautiful candle holder with room for 9 candles. And just give me a moment to put this on. Here's our menorah. And I may stand and move around a little bit so you can see it better. 9 arms on this candle. Make it a little hard to put out. Maybe Alan could come over and give me a hand. Alan Sprout, do you mind coming and helping me? Thank you. Maybe you could put that on there for me. Thank you. Right. So the menorah is a beautiful candle holder that holds 9 candles. First of all, there's an extra candle in the middle that all the other candles are lit from, and it's called the helper candle. Are we ready? Here we go. And now, I'm gonna go ahead and keep standing. Hanukkah lasts for 8 nights, and there's special things that the families do on each of the nights. They gather together with their loved ones. They play dreidel, which is a spinning top. And I have a dreidel right here. Maybe you recognize it. Some of us are going to be playing dreidel in class today. They eat potato latkes together. Oh, there's my candles. And I just so happen to have a plate of latkes together for us. Yeah. They sing songs together. They share gifts and exchange them. It's very simple gifts. They eat jelly donuts together, and I understand some of you are getting jelly donuts in class today. And they're fried just like the latkes are, because it reminds them of the miracle of the oil. They eat chocolate gelt together. Those are chocolate coins. And they say blessings together. So there is our menorah with the 8 candles and the 1 helper candle in the middle. On the 8th night, all the candles burn brightly. Everyone remembers the story of the fight for freedom and the miracle of the lights. Everyone is happy to be with people who love them. Now, I had a question for you. Have any of you, could you just raise your hand? Have any of you heard this story before? Some people have, okay. I wonder which part you liked the best. And I'd like to hear from 2 people. Which part, I wonder, what part did you like the best? The start, okay. Does somebody else want to say something that they liked? Oh, go ahead. The dreidel. And now, I wonder if you've ever experienced a miracle or what you think is a miracle. Yeah, miracles are really interesting things, and the grown-ups are going to be talking about it. Well, thank you so much for our special story about Hanukkah today. We're going to go ahead to class, and let's go ahead and sing you out. Thank you for being such good listeners today.
We come now to the time in our worship service where we share our gifts with one another. There are many ways that we give to each other at Horizon, both with our time and talent and with our treasure. The offering will now be joyfully given and received.
Today's first reading is from First Light, a collection of early writings of Sue Monk Kidd. One December, when my daughter Anne was 6, she tucked 2 gifts beneath the Christmas tree. One for her daddy, the other for me. What do you suppose they are? I asked my husband. He shrugged, as puzzled as I. On Christmas morning, I opened my gift to find a pair of slightly familiar-looking silver earrings. In her daddy's package was a navy tie with little tan ducks on it. "Why, Anne," I exclaimed, genuinely amazed, "where did you get these lovely gifts?" "The cedar chest," she answered. That's when I recognized the earrings as a pair I'd retired to the chest at least 10 years before. The tie had been discarded long ago, too. Anne had given us gifts we already possessed. The incident caused me to consider how much my life was quietly caught in wanting, seeking, and acquisition. That trinity of all American pursuits not only undermined my sense of what is enough, but seduced me into an artificial sense of discontent. Thanks to a 6-year-old, I discovered the clean, simple wisdom of waking up to what I already have.
We come now to the time in our worship service that we set aside for meditation and prayer. We'll share a time of silence, hear the joys and sorrows of our community, hear a spoken prayer, and join in singing our responsive hymn, Spirit of Life. I invite you to join me now in a time of silence. We have both joys and sorrows to share this morning. We are in sorrow with Mary Blow, whose father passed away on December 6th. We also share in sorrow with Elizabeth Gustwick, Diana Bracken, member of Horizon, beloved wife of Elizabeth, passed away on Monday, December 5th. We also experience gratitude this morning, always thankful for opportunities for calm amidst the chaos. Loving God, Spirit of Life, we gather this morning in gratitude for our presence here, for the ability to come into this place and to be who we are, for the chance to just sit and breathe deeply, knowing that it could always be otherwise. We hold each other this morning in love and in care, even those we have not yet met. We give thanks for the miracle that is their presence among us. In these days of shadow, help us to turn toward the present moment and away from life's distractions, so that we might see the gifts that darkness has in store for us, and to follow to where the stars are calling. As the festival of lights draws closer, rekindle within us the flame of resistance over and against the powers that lead to assimilation and death, with love of freedom and culture and gratitude for miracles big and small. In this season of watching and waiting, free us from despair's well-worn ruts. Make through the deserts of our hearts and world a way for hope and peace, joy and love to be born anew. Come, let us listen, let us learn, let us recommit to what is possible together. May it be so. Amen. I invite us to remain seated and join now in singing our responsive hymn, Spirit of Life. Our second reading this morning is entitled The Moment of Magic by Reverend Victoria Safford. She writes, "Now is the moment of magic, when the whole round earth will turn again toward the sun. And here is a blessing. The days will be longer and brighter soon, even before the winter settles in to chill us. Now is the moment of magic, when people, beaten down and broken, with nothing left but misery and candles and their own clear voices, kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music. And here's a blessing. The dark universe is suddenly illuminated by the lights of the menorah, suddenly ablaze with the lights of the kinara, and the whole world is glad and loud with winter singing. Now is the moment of magic, when an eastern star beckons the ignorant toward an unknown goal. And here's a blessing. They find nothing in the end but an ordinary baby, born at midnight, born in poverty, and the baby's cry, like bells ringing, makes people wonder as they wander through their lives what human love might really look like, sound like, feel like. Now is the moment of magic, and here's a blessing. We already possess all the gifts we need. We've already received our presents, ears to hear music, eyes to behold lights, hands to build true peace on earth, and to hold each other tight in love." Here ends the reading. A few years ago, I was in a very important interview talking about my ministry experience, and I had answered all sorts of questions, and things had gone well, and I could feel like we were coming to the end of our time. And then a member of the interview team, who was a psychologist, asked me to imagine I was in a chaplaincy situation where the patient had suffered a devastating injury. And he said, imagine the family has gathered, and they ask you if you believe that Jesus Christ performs miracles of healing. What do you say? And I said, well, in my experience in chaplaincy, it's a little bit less about us and what we believe, and more about the person and their family and what they might believe about miracles. So I'd be trying to find out about that and what's important to them. But he pressed further, asking, if they specifically asked you whether you believe Jesus Christ performs miracles here on earth, what would you say about what you believe? And sort of half exasperated but half playful, with a smile on my face, I said, I believe in miracles. And with that, we said our thank yous and our goodbyes and kind of drew to a close. So the thing about chaplaincy, which is something that all ministers in the UU tradition and most others too have some training in, is that when that little beeper goes off, you have made the commitment to show up, no matter the time of day or night, not knowing what you will find, but with the promise in your heart that you will be there, no matter what comes. And I meant what I said about believing in miracles, just maybe not that exact kind. As we said last week, our theme for December is power. And much of that power comes from the miracles that are placed in front of us, both in the old stories and in our own lives. Some of us, I think, have a hard time this time of year. Despite years of unlearning, we might find ourselves hung up on the literal interpretations of traditions we might have learned as kids, thinking that if we can't believe in that particular way, if we don't believe it happened just like that, then maybe these times of celebration aren't for us at all. And I think we deserve better than that. I think there's room for many ways of being here. And what about when life doesn't feel like a miracle at all, but instead feels very, very hard? Family dynamics can be incredibly challenging, especially as the past few years in a lot of ways have highlighted differences in a way that's almost impossible for us to ignore. And grief can hit us hard this time of year in ways we least expect. For those of us who have lost someone, whether it's fresh or many years in the past, those old hurts come to the surface again at the holidays. Our traditions are harder to take part in when we're missing people at our tables. And so there needs to always be room in our celebrations for people who don't feel like celebrating. Grief is always a guest at our tables. And so maybe our way in, bringing all of that with us, is through another of the old familiar stories. Lauren beautifully shared the Hanukkah story with the kids and with us earlier. And though we know it begins next Sunday, the story is our entry point this morning into miracles, both old and new. The Hanukkah story is one that exists nowhere in the Hebrew Scriptures, and yet it has, of course, survived anyway, handed down from generation to generation. The story of a people almost crushed under an oppressive leader and regime who are fighting for their faith, their culture, trying to keep their way of life alive at great risk. And in the story, they fight for all those things so close to their heart, all the while knowing they may not win. And we here in the present day, we know how the story ends. We know that the Maccabees do win. And we know when Jews and Jewish UUs celebrate the Festival of Lights, there's a way in which we take this story that starts out sad and scary, and as we tell it and retell it, it blossoms into a miracle. I can remember as a child learning the story of Hanukkah and asking, but how? How could the oil last for 8 days? Did this really happen? How do we know? But of course, the story is more about the way faith and practices that are life-giving and life-sustaining, like study and religious practice, especially when they go against the grain, these are like the oil. They keep the fire within our hearts burning, even when it seems like it could easily go out. Next week, we'll celebrate the solstice and the knowing that the sun and the light and the longer days will return as they have for millions of years now. And this knowing, in and of itself, is a miracle. And in a few more weeks, we'll hear the Christmas story in which Mary and Joseph find no room at the inn, but instead they do find a stable where Mary can give birth to Jesus and where they both can keep him safe. And now this might be an obvious take, but it's easy for us with our 21st century context to hear these stories and to take the endings for granted, knowing that the miracles will just kind of happen. But part of the reason that we retell the same stories over and over again is so that we might imagine ourselves actually living them. And so that by doing so, we might hear something new that speaks to us in this time and in this place. When we talk about spiritual experiences, especially of children, we first begin with wonder, both in the sense of amazement and awe, but also in the sense of wondering and questioning. And so I invite you into that spirit of wonder with me. And I wonder what it would have been like lighting the Yule log to beckon back the sun, but not knowing really whether it would return. I wonder what it would have been like to be part of the Maccabees' army, fighting those much stronger and more prepared. Would I have been afraid? Would my family have been afraid for me? I wonder how scared Mary and Joseph must have felt knowing that there was a king out there who, for some reason, wanted to hurt their new baby, and how stunned they would have been by the arrival of the wise people and the singing of angels. There's so much that we cannot know and cannot fully imagine, but these feelings of fear and uncertainty, the anxiousness with which we might await life's next twist or turn, these are universal to the human experience. They hold true, I think, across time. It is fully human to worry sometimes, to wonder if things will be okay, really to wonder if we will be okay. And in all of these stories, the Christmas story, the Hanukkah story, the solstice story, there's a faith, a knowing there. In the Hanukkah story, it's the idea that people need to be free, that we all deserve to be who we are, despite oppressive powers that might say otherwise. In the Christmas story, Mary and Joseph had each other, and they kept each other safe, while holding their hearts open to all the strangeness and the weirdness of angels singing and wise people coming. And at the solstice, the knowing comes from people gathered together in groups around fires, awaiting light with uncertainty because life depended on it. And in each of these stories, by the way, part of the miracle is that no one does any of these things alone. We told the story last week of John Murray. And that's what I like to think of as one of our UU miracles. And if you missed it, I'm going to catch you up very quickly. So John Murray is a minister living in England, and he believes in a thing called universal salvation, meaning that no one is left out of the love of God, no matter what. So when we say things like loving God, this is what it's inspired by. This is what it means. And so life is good for John until it's not. He loses everything. His wife and his child die, and he can't pay his bills, and he ends up in a debtor's prison. And he can either stay in prison or sail to the New World, which was risky at the time. And he decides to go, not really caring whether he lived or died, having lost all of his hope. And so Murray's ship blows off course into a New Jersey harbor in a storm, and it cannot sail. And so he meets a man named Thomas Potter, who has built a chapel that has sat empty for 10 years, waiting for a preacher. And the townspeople taunt Thomas, saying, "Potter, Potter, where is your preacher?" And Potter wonders if Murray will deliver a sermon that Sunday in this empty chapel. And Murray says, "You know what? If my ship doesn't set sail, I will," probably thinking he would never have to. But another storm comes, and he cannot set sail, and instead, he preaches a sermon about this universal love. And so Murray went on to settle in Gloucester, to marry again, and to spread this message of love, radical at the time and radical still. And when I think of what it can feel like to be hopeless, I go back to the story of John Murray, setting sail for the New World, stumbling into this chapel, a place where he was free to preach his message of love, even though he may not have been able to feel it in his own heart, even though his faith was shaken by all the pain that life had brought him. But his belief in his message and that little part of him that was willing to start over carried him through. And in that, I see a miracle. There's something sacred, too, in the fact that these two people found each other, that Potter was able to make space for Murray to open his heart to the possibility of living again. Neither of them could go it alone. And in that, I see a miracle, too. In the wise words of the Reverend Kristen Schmidt, not every story has a happy ending, and not every hard time ends in a miracle. But the good news is that we contain multitudes. Our lives are tapestries of many, many stories, and some of them will turn out okay, and even better than okay. And the hope and faith and miracles of old remind us of those who have gone before and pushed through their fear and made it through and experienced something so precious, so amazing, so worth passing on through the generations that we celebrate it still to this day. In the reading we heard earlier from Sue Monk Kidd, she talked about the way she and her husband were given gifts that they already had and had forgotten about. And sometimes it might take looking with new eyes in order to see all that we already have, in order to see that what we need may already be here. She also writes in Secret Life of Bees, "I realized it for the first time in my life. There is nothing but mystery in the world, how it hides behind the fabric of our poor, browbeat days, shining brightly, and we don't even know it." As Victoria Safford put it in the reading we heard earlier, now is the moment of magic, when people beaten down and broken, with nothing left but misery and candles and their own clear voices, kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music. And here's a blessing. The dark universe is suddenly illuminated by the lights of the menorah, suddenly ablaze with the lights of the Kinara, and the whole world is glad and loud with winter singing. And here's a blessing. We already possess all the gifts we need. The miracle, the stuff of hope and love, sometimes beyond our belief, is already here in front of us. As Albert Einstein writes, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is. And so as we get ready to close our time together, I'm thinking again about the question we began with, about what do we believe about miracles? And I have been both the chaplain called upon and also been on the other side, family in the room to which they are called. And what I remember is not what was said. In fact, I don't even think much was, but that someone was there. Someone showed up. Maybe that's the hidden miracle that we see and hear in all these ancient stories. The miracle isn't the healing I was asked about, but that someone showed up so that we didn't have to be alone. That someone showed up to await the Son's return, uncertain though it may have been. That people showed up to stand alongside the Maccabees and to take back the temple. That the innkeeper showed up and found room in his heart to make a safe place for Mary and Joseph to have their baby. Not every hard time produces something miraculous within us. Sometimes we just survive. Sometimes we just get through. But the wheel of the seasons keeps on turning, slowly. And maybe this is a reminder that hard seasons do not last forever, that the chill of winter eventually gives way to something new. And I think that's a miracle too. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to rise, either in body or in spirit, and join in singing our closing hymn, People Look East.
We extinguish this flame, but not our commitment to Horizon's mission to welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. This we do because we envision a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world.
I invite you to join hands as you're comfortable. Friends, my prayer for us this morning is that we remember that all we need is here among us. Go in peace.